what's up, Springfield? We are excited to share with you season 2 of Springfield Stories. Season 1 was amazing, and we were able to hear and share the stories and the journey of our neighbors right here in our community. Season 2, we have more great stories for you to hear, because we all have a story. We all have an authentic story and a journey, and when we share those stories, it increases our capacity to show compassion, bring unity, and even encourage one another here in our community. So check out this story from one of your neighbors. All right. What's up, everybody? This is another episode of Springfield Stories. This is a great time where we could just connect with our neighbors here in our city, giving them opportunity to share their story so we can learn and just create more compassion and just grow as a community. And we have a great guest today. Share us your name.
Chris Wallace.
Chris Wallace, the famous Chris Wallace, So welcome, man. Thank you for coming, man. So first, let's ask how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm at a really good mental state right now, and just ready to grow some more as a young adult in this corporate world, I guess you should say. I've only been in it about 6 years now, so getting used to navigating through that, and really excited about the challenge and ready to grow, man. Just ready to grow and help my community, help my city as much as I can, and surrounding areas as well.
Yeah, good deal, man. So as always, man, there's a starting point. You just didn't become Chris like this. Now there's always a, you just didn't born. It just became Chris. There's life.
Yes.
So let's dig into it, man.
Okay.
What is some of your what's your upbringing like? Your childhood like? Family dynamic, man. Share it with us.
Well, born and raised in Springfield, Ohio. Born in 1975.
Hold up, Chris. You're 1975, man. And you mentioned earlier, man, that you're a young adult. I think you kind of...
Am I older than that?
I think you kind of passed that young adult stage,
Well,
Chris.
I don't care what you say. I'm going to hang on to it. I'm a young adult. I still got some juice left in me. You hear me? Everybody out there, 40s and up, represent. All right? Represent. We not hearing what these young folks is trying to tell us. They trying to push us out the way. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. Get that on camera. All right?
That's amazing, man. What's your upbringing? Go ahead,
like I said, man, born and raised, I was fortunate to grow up in a two-family home. I had my father, James Wallace, and my mother, Rita Wallace. My father wasn't from a very big family. Wasn't really family oriented. They had a smaller family. He never met his mother. His mother died during his birth. So he grew up as the oldest foster kid in his family, a step kid in his family, I should say, not foster, but he said he felt like a foster kid at some times. But he was the oldest in his family, and his brothers and sisters' mom was present in that marriage. He knew his dad. He grew up with his dad. We were a church home. My daddy was a minister at a New Covenant right there by Evans Stadium, small church, and we would go there. And the other side of my family, the Victoria family, was more family oriented, more rooted to the earth, as people say. They like to hang out and have the cookouts and the parties, and so got to see both worlds as a kid. They made us go to church on Sundays, and then Sundays we didn't. We had to watch Reverend Price, and we walked by faith, not by sight. Evidence. I remember that. But I hung a lot. I spent a lot of time with the Victoria side of the family, and I was fortunate to be around a lot of other boys in that family and hanging out at Grandma Honey's. She had a basketball court down there and a field and a street, not a lot of traffic down there. So we really got to. I really grew up being competitive over there. That's where I learned how athletics roll from the inside out. And my uncles were there, and it just kind of grew me up. Surrounded myself with a lot of sports and athletics, and that was my train of thought as I went through elementary. I wanted to be in the NFL. I wanted to be in the NBA. I wanted to be in the MLB. I wanted to play all three, and I did play all three. And we were outdoor kids. I think everybody was outdoor kids compared to now. There's a lot of technology, a lot of cool things to do inside. And so I was a very personal kid. I was able to kids like me in my circle. We didn't have to leave. We didn't have to leave our circle as much to play with kids and deal with kids when I was younger, because my mom had 9 brothers and sisters. And they all had kids. So I mean, our cousin line went deep. It went deep, and we took care of each other. It was competitive, but it was always the positive things. Or you need to work on this, or you need to work on that, or I'm going to help you get better at this. And once I got outside of my circle and I started going to grade school, I wasn't down on Rosedale in the Needmore community. I was out in my neighborhood in Southgate and going to school. And I started to meet people, and that's where I met my best friend. When we moved, we lived over on 538 Terry Moore Drive, and my mom wanted to move. I think I was about 5 or 6, and I remember this vaguely, vividly, I should say. When she said we were moving, on Meade Lane, showed me the house. It's directly around the corner, not even a full block. Like, you just go around the bend, and then I'm on Meade Lane, and I'm right there. But to me, man, I cried like a baby because I thought we was moving it felt like out of state to me. I didn't want to move from that house. But then when I did move, I started to see a young man across the street over there, and his name was D. Miller. He kept throwing the ball in the air. I think I seen that on the show where he was talking about the same thing. But I ran into him, and he had a football. I like to throw. He was trying to catch, and I was like, hey, you want to play? He was like, yeah. And that was it. We've been playing ever since, But when I got out of that circle, and see, in my circle, It was all positive. Everybody's pushing each other. It was up. Met D, same thing. When I got outside of that, I started to meet the other half of life. I started to meet people who, I don't want to compete with you. I want you to feel bad about yourself to come down so I can be better. In my family, in my circle, it's let's get better together. Oh, you getting good? And I might be like, man, how you doing that? Here, we do this. That's all I knew. And then I met my first friend outside of the circle, was the same way. So to me, that is how life is supposed to be. You give. You give, you give, you give. And you appreciate and you support and you support and you support. But when I got out of that, I started to see the other side. And people started to tell me my flaws in a way of not wanting me to feel good about myself. And the first thing I saw that was at school, where there were people who would make fun of the way I run or the way I walk. That was pretty much it, because when we put the ball in my hand, you got to respect that. You put the football in my hand, you got to respect that. You put the baseball in my hand, you got to respect that. So those things, they looked past that and and it got to me a little bit. I started to look at myself and not feel as confident as the way I've been built up, the way our family builds our kids up. We walk tall through everything. But I didn't understand walking through things. I thought everybody was the same way. I didn't understand how I had to walk through stuff. Right. And that was the first time when I went back to my mom and asked, why do I look like this? Why is my feet crooked and nobody else. And that's when I first heard the story about how I wasn't supposed to walk when I was born. My mother, she sat me down and said, Chris, you was born with clubbed feet. I said, huh? She said, yeah, you was born with clubbed feet. And at the time you were born, it was a phenomenon. They were still trying to figure out, how do we cure this? You know, they were under the impression 6 or 7 surgeries, and, you know. So she told me when I was born, before I was born, she told everyone not to buy socks. Like, don't buy my baby socks. Excuse me. Don't buy my baby socks. He don't have any feet. And they would say, Rita, don't say that. He's all right. He don't have any feet. He's got feet. And she said, no, I'm the youngest of 4. Okay. I was kind of the accident. You know, that Marvin Gaye was hitting the right way, and the stars was aligned for mom and dad again. It was lined up. It was lined up. The Ganesh number 8 incense was
just lined up right there.
It was going down for him. So, yeah, it was all there. Stetson, Brute, yeah.
It's cologne, right? Everything.
So, I'm the youngest. My closest sister is 8 years older than me. They're all 2 years apart. So, I was young. And I think my mom had a miscarriage prior to me and really wasn't looking to have kids, and here comes Chris. So she knew about babies and when they kicked and what's going on inside of her. And she said, you never kicked. So I knew. I just knew you didn't have any feet, and I was okay with that. I was content. And she's telling me all this. And I'm looking at her, and she's strong, and she's looking me in the eye, and she's like, no. So I told him, don't buy me any socks. So I didn't have any socks at the baby shower. And the day I was born, she said the doctors came in with a serious face, like not normal. She's had 3 other kids. She know they come in smiling, here's your baby. So they came in a little nervous, and she said, you was a beautiful baby, and still beautiful. I would like to say that. She said, you was a beautiful baby. She said, but they were nervous. And they said, well, we got a problem. So she said they unwrapped, and she said your feet were completely backwards and green and blue because the ligaments, there was no oxygen. And they were like, just, calm down before we show you. So when they showed her, they was expecting her to go, oh. But my mom's not like that. And that's what she told me. She's like, she said, once I saw your feet, I was like, he's got feet. And everybody looked at her like, what is wrong with her? She was like, I didn't think he had feet at all. Well, he don't. She was like, well, he's got feet. We can work with something. And she said from that moment, she started to pray and confess with her tongue that I was going to be okay. And immediately they broke my feet and put them in casts. And from that time, my sister kind of jumped in because she said my oldest sister, Vanita, everybody calls her Janie in the neighborhood, she would tell me after that in the cast, I would have to go back and they would take the cast off and my feet were raw to the touch. So as an infant, it hurts. So she said, I would hear you screaming from the lobby. I know that was your cry because they had to break them again. So my feet are raw to the touch, but they're grabbing them hard enough to where they got to break them again. So they broke them the first time, casted them, and I think they broke them again. So from that point, they were here, and I had to wear shoes that were here with a bar, and I had to leave those on until I was old enough for surgery. So they were saying you need 6 or 7 surgeries to have a 40% chance of walking. So my mom was like, well, they looking good now, we gonna work. And they said never to take these shoes off leave them on, only for baths and everything else, but put them back on and don't take them off. Leave them on. My dad heard that. My dad was real adamant about that. And my dad was the educational side. My dad had drawings of I found it after he had passed in 2000 and I think it was 2011. He had a notebook. We was cleaning out the shed. He had a notebook, and I think it was 1960 something. He had a drawing of a laptop. It said, "This is where computers are going." So he was a teacher. I mean, not a teacher. He studied. He was going to Wittenberg to be an engineer, and met some people through IBM. There was IBM. They did a little job search, and he was going to go to this convention. He was one of the top students. And Mom had just had my oldest sister at the time. And she said, and then this is the middle of the story. I'm sitting here waiting to hear my story, but she's giving me the background of them and what I'm made of, you know. So she said he was supposed to go to this IBM thing, and IBM, and too many people know about it yet. And so he went, and that's where he had all these ideas about the computer. And she was like, "So how is it?" Now, mind you, he's at Wittenberg, engineer student. My mom taught herself how to read and write. She never went to high school, okay? She was done after middle school. And then she's got this person here, intellectual, and she's here. He saw something in her. They were together since she was 12 and he was 16. So she watched him keep growing, and he watched her where he was, but they met somewhere on some common ground and was able to connect and create something. And she said it came down to this. He didn't go. He went to the convention, but he didn't take the job. They was going to offer him a job, so he would have been part of the computer movement. Computers were the size of this room at the time. He had drawings of laptops, and this is in the 60s. And she said, "Well, how'd it go?" He's like, "They offered a job, but I didn't take it." And she sat there and told me, she said, "I asked him why." He said, "Well, the people I was around, I probably would have ended up leaving you because of all the people and the women I was around with such the same page. And I didn't want to put ourselves in that because God's telling me that this is where I need to be. So I didn't do that." So when she told me that, she was like, "So this is what you're made of, son." So now let's go back to when these feet have been broken out and they tell me not to take them off. She said, "God wasn't telling me that. God told me to take those shoes off and talk to them, rub them, tell them where they're supposed to go. You're supposed to go this way." And she rubbed them. And she said, "I would rub your feet." But she couldn't do it in front of my dad. So my dad ended up taking a job as a millwright at Navistar instead of the college thing. He started to work at Navistar. So when he would go to work, that's when she would take off the shoes. And she said, "I just kept working with you, and then something told me you don't need no surgeries." And they kept sending her wheelchair stuff, money, aid that she can get for ramps to go to the house where I can roll up. Like, they were chalking it, because she had missed some dates to where I was supposed to get some surgery. So they was like, "Well, he's not going to walk." So I think I was about 8 months old. Dad went off to work. She took the shoes off, and by that time, I'm having confidence of using what I got, adjusting with what I have, you know. And she said, "You stood up on that couch, and I looked over, and you ran and fell." And she said, "I got so excited. I was just as excited as when they said you had feet and I saw them and they was backwards." She said, this is what I was being fed. This is what my spirit was telling me what was going to happen. This was my vision." And she said, "I grabbed you, hadn't even really put 3 steps together. And I took you to the doctor, and we went and saw Dr. Goodson. That was our family doctor. And she said she went in there and told Dr. Goodson that my baby can walk. She said, you hadn't even walked yet. She said, I went and got you some tennis shoes on the way to the doctor and took you in there like them is done. And she put them shoes on me, and I went in there, and she's like, my baby can walk. Dr. Goodson said, hold on. So he walked out of the office and came back with his other doctors who's practicing medicine in the building, but they were psychiatrists. They came back, he thought she was in denial. So they come back to ready to have an intervention for my mom. Like, you haven't did anything we told you to do. You missed the first date for the surgery that we were supposed to do. And you definitely got tennis shoes on him, so that's a no-no. We're thinking you're in denial, and I have some people here to help you. So as he's saying that, she said, I'll put you down. Like I said, Chris, you hadn't put 3 steps together. She said, I'll put you down. They were in front of you, in front of us talking. I was sitting down. I just took you off my lap and put you on the ground. And they still talking, and you walked right over to them. And she said they were just stunned because now they know what to do with club feet. It's not a major deal. But at that time, she said, and from that point on, I knew what you were made of. Like, you didn't even know you stood up for me in the moment. Like, my mama said I can walk. I'm going to walk. And I did it, you know. She said, so when these kids at Parent Woods want to come make fun of you, oh, no. You just look at that as a compliment. That's a compliment. You hear them, but show them why you so proud to run the way you run and keep giving it to them on recess. Keep giving it to them at up scramble. Keep giving it to them on the monkey bars. And from that point, I started to embrace who I am. And the next stage after that, I started to see how adults could see that as cocky or confident. And all that was me being proud to say, man, I'm walking amongst the walking. I'm living amongst the living, and I'm happy to be here.
Man, you said one thing, man, that I think is valid, because I don't think some youth or kids today have that courage to go back to their parents. What I honor is the transparency. So for, when you are getting picked on in school and stuff like that, there's always that way of
handling myself.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And you channel that, I handle myself, instead of going back to your parents. Say, you know what happened? What is my story of birth? You know what I'm saying? Why do I walk this way? Why am I, this? Why did this happen? And let me get that background and that history, because once you know, then it does give you a better confidence that something's not wrong with, this is what happened.
That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying? So now I can own it. It wasn't nothing you did, it was wrong. I mean, it wasn't like you were saying like, yo, I want club feet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It wasn't like your mom. So that every day there was a part of their story, man. But I just encourage parents
Yes.
to be open and transparent with their kids, because that helps them move through life.
Yes.
When you know that story. And I think sometimes, man, we're so used to, just as families, hiding stuff and being so secretive on things, man.
Yes.
And you don't know how just being open and transparent can unlock freedom for your child to like at least know, okay, now I get it.
Yes. Yes.
Now I know.
Yes. You
Why
can't worry
this is.
about.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah. You can't worry about being judged by somebody, because you miss the opportunity of growth when you do that. And I think the black community is starting to share their feelings, the black family. But I don't think we really did a great job of that. The mental health part and understanding. I have some issues that I want to talk about, or I have a problem, but I give kudos to my mother and father, because one thing they stressed for all of us and all of my brothers and sisters, she made sure she would say that. I know she would say it 4 or 5 times a month, man, while we growing up, to each of us individually, and she would say this: there's never nothing you cannot bring to me that you're going through or you want. I don't care. And I tried her one time. I was like, so if I came and told you I like boys, which she said, I don't care. You my son. There is nothing you can't not come to me. And she would keep reiterating that. And I know why. Down when I ran through that, I was like, I want to go talk to. Why they making fun of me? What is this about? You know, and I think I grew out of it for a certain amount of time, and we'll talk about that as we get in
Right.
it. But that definitely boosted me as a child, knowing I don't care what happens to me outside of my house or outside of my yard or somewhere else. I can go back and tell my mom what happened and what I did.
Yep. What is, dealing with childhood, man? Then we move on to the next session. But what was your relationship like with your father? Most, growing up in a two-parent house,
Yes.
because for some that's not normal.
That's right.
For some it's either, I'm going over
nothing
mom's, I'm going over dad's, or I'm over my,
Yeah.
that's not normal.
That's not.
So having a two-parent house, but as a child and being the youngest, having that at that time, you probably didn't know when you're young, but what was your relationship specifically with your dad?
The same way I was just kind of describing it, where he was from. He wasn't a extrovert person. He would hold the things that he's going through in. He wouldn't come home and share or let the kids see, at least, the vulnerable part of him. You would see it come out sometimes when he would drink. It wouldn't be violent, but he would be a little more boisterous and talk about some things. You would see some things in him like, oh, Dad, as a kid, we like, oh, that's fun. Dad's fun today. So the mom part, but with my dad, he wasn't an athlete. You see a lot of, my dad wasn't an athlete. He was a book guy. He read books. He walked around with books. Reverend Buford was one of his close friends, and they rode with books. As kids, they talking about books with each other. You read this book? You read this? And he would read the gangster books too, and he loved 007, so he thought he was a James Bond. I think he caught his first case that way. He had his trench coat and recorder. And, had him a little pistol, and it fell out at the bar or whatever, and he got sent away. And they waived his. They didn't let him go to jail. He was about to walk and go to jail, and the judge said, "You know what? I'm looking at your mom, your wife, and I'm looking at your two kids, because it was my sister and brother at the time, and they really love you and need you. So I'm not gonna send you through that door. I'm gonna let you be." And he was able to come home that day, and he said he sat there, and then he would always say, even though I walk through the shadow, the valley of death, I fear no evil. And he said he just would say that, and that got rid of his fear during that trial, and it worked for him. But with him, my brothers, I had an older brother, and he never went to any of his games. And my brother was a heck of an athlete. But my dad wasn't big on sports. The sports came from my mother's side. My father and them were books, sisters, my aunts sang, the Wallace sisters. But he wasn't big on sports. He kind of shunned upon it, kind of, with sports. And my mom said he came to every one of my games. Never missed a game, pee-wee, anything. I'm like, so why didn't he go to my brother's games? He said, well, somebody at work called him on it, called him to the carpet. Like, man, your son is really good. I'm at all my games. Their sons are playing together. Where are you at? You need to support your kids. And I guess he had got into it with the guy, but later on he really was like, he's right. So he had his second chance with me to do it the right way. And we would he would take me to my games, my baseball games. I mean, he would go everywhere. Even once we got to college, he would drive up to Toledo, and it was cold my freshman year. I didn't play. People don't understand. I didn't play college until my junior year. I sat the bench as a state player of the year in high school. But he would come to every game, and I remember looking up one time and just see him sitting there by himself. I'm not even playing, man, and he's got all this stuff on, and he's sitting there, and I knew he supported me, and he didn't play no games. He was a no nonsense type of guy, and we were. I got a lot of good getting down to business things from him. He was a hands-on guy.
Do you think that, caused any, I will say resentment, only for a lack of a better word, because I can't think of another word at this particular time, but between you and your brother? Because if your brother's like, yo,
Yeah, I'm the
Dad didn't
youngest.
come to none of my games.
All of them resented. My sisters resented some stuff.
You
They
know what
all
I'm saying? But
resented.
now here come Chris, and now all of a sudden you want to get right and do all this type of stuff.
Yeah,
man.
Chris coming in with the new J's. Chris
Yeah.
coming in with the youngest was getting it
Yeah.
all. I was the do-over for him. So yes, there was probably some like, man, how he, my brother handled it well, and he had his things. Him and Dad didn't have the relationship that I had, and he had, and like I said, everybody was 8 years apart. So by the time I get into middle school, I'm in the house by myself. Everybody's gone. I'm in the house by myself in middle school. I got to wake myself up. If I didn't want to go to school, nobody would have known.
Man, that's another dynamic there, man. So let's move as you go to middle school and high school, man. Now you're like, yo, I don't have siblings and stuff with me in school. So what was, transitioning out? So what was that like for you?
That was different. I remember in like preschool going to Gray Hill, Miss Copeland and my Uncle Willie coming to pick us all up. We were all in the car, but as people left, my brother was the last one to leave. He was like, I'm going to do this camp in the Pocono Mountains, man. I'm going to be gone and probably going to live out there in North Carolina. He never came. That was it. So when he left, I remember sitting in a chair like this, and he walked out the door, and I was like, now, mind you, I'm used to having older brothers, siblings, and but I had a friend that was used to being by himself. His name was D, Yeah. So he would be like, man, he got brothers and sisters, but at the same time, now I'm like, what's it like being by yourself? And it created a self-assertiveness naturally, because if I wanted to get something done, my brother wasn't taking me to the gym. My brother wasn't, I wanted to get good grades. I had to find ways to, how are we doing this? So there was one other person that was kind of doing that. And not by choice, nobody left, but he was the only child. So I really became an only child for a while, all the way through high school. So me and him really connected on that level because we were each other, we were each other. So in high school, I also had a cousin, Danny Davis, and my mom and my Aunt Curleen, which is Danny's mom, they definitely wanted us to go play with our other cousin, Steve Victoria, who was at North. And they wanted us, be all together. I wanted to go to South. My friend was D. I'm living on the south end of town. I was going to Evans Stadium. I was going to the Wildcats games. I'll shoot out there and see Buddy Woods play a little bit out there, but I was ready to, go here. And so during middle school, I was wanting to definitely be a Wildcat, and that was going back and forth. But we also had a problem during middle school where they took contact football away. So we were doing this thing called flag football all of a sudden. And me and D, we really started to gel with each other and stuff like that in middle school. And I wanted to tell my mom I wanted to go to South, and she was like, nah, you going to North first. You go to North and play with your cousin Danny, because Danny went and played with Steve. So when Steve graduated, I was the cousin that was going to play with Danny. And so my freshman and sophomore year, I went out there and got to meet a whole nother type of life of people not really knowing how to communicate with people like me. You definitely had to have all your ducks in a row. It wasn't nobody sensing something and pulling you aside. And I had to learn that. Like, some people are just going to say, hey, I like you, Chris, you know. But if I'm not doing my job, they're not going to say anything. They're just going to replace you. And that's what I got from what I'm saying. I remember my sophomore years when I started to actually get playing time varsity-wise. I was a starting quarterback and put up some great numbers and was leading the area in passing, had a news article that came out. And then here comes that ugly, envious face rearing his head again with some of my teammates. You know, just instead of saying nice article, man, that's good, kids, they don't know how to process it themselves. So they say something that lash out kind of. And people was kind of talking about me in my article. And I was upset, and my cousin got me out of it. It was the day of the game when it came. I was excited about the article. I remember looking at it in the paper and saying, dang, I look like my dad. You know, they woke me up at 6 in the morning before they went to work because my dad and my mom worked at Navistar.
Okay.
So they would go together, and I would be up by myself. But I started to get some notoriety in the community and in the high school, and I started to feel myself on the other side beyond staying humble and focused. And I remember my sophomore year after football season, I think my book bag, it did. I don't even think it. My book bag had dust on it. The zipper part, it was dust. I never opened it. And I remember in spring, I'm playing baseball. I must have did enough to get from fall to winter.
Right.
And then spring hit, and it must have went all the way out, you know, because the weather.
Yep.
You know, the girls are out now, and, you know, you want to see what's going on.
Yep.
And I remember we had a game up on the hill with Coach Stoll, and we was going in extra innings against Tecumseh. I was like, Coach, man, put me in so I can hit a home run and get out of here. I'm ready to go home. And everybody, this is a doubleheader. Now we're in like the 10th inning on a 7-inning game. Everybody's like, let's go. And he's like, you know what? Grab a bat. Let's go. And everybody's like, I'm like, we out of here, boys. And I went and hit a home run. Now, mind you, he's joking with me.
Right.
I go hit the home run. Boom. Do the walk-off. Everybody's like, man, you called it and hit a home run. Go in the locker room. Everybody, Chris, come here. I come in, and he says, you're ineligible. This was your last game. You got 5 Fs. And for a while, I was really resentful with, like, why didn't nobody tell me? Why didn't nobody help me? But I also learned from it, like, you can't depend on people to tell you stuff all the time. You got to do the absolute best you can. Do what you got to do. And that was the first time I really had some self-check. And I remember the next day coming out of school, and I was like, it's the first time I've never went to a practice before or anything. And after that, it was I wanted to transfer. It was after my sophomore year. And I had to get my grades together, though, that year. So I went back in there, and I started to understand. The teachers loved me. I was always trying to make people laugh, you know. I was that guy. Some people would call it a class clown. I like to just call it, you know, I get everybody relaxed before we start class. But they would laugh with me. They would, you know, love me, high-five me. But I was failing their class. I never had that conversation with them. So I resented that a little bit, like, why didn't you never tell me I'm struggling or I didn't turn any work in? I'm looking at if we on the up and up.
Yeah.
We good.
When you got to F's, did you tell your mom? Like, how did they receive that?
Oh, I went home and said, I got 5 F's. And they said, you know, my dad, he said, well, Kadumbi. He would call me Kadumbi. He had a choice of words, man. That was pretty cool sometimes when you look back at it. And he's like, there's nobody to blame but you. There's your books. There's your homework. And that's when I really looked at my book bag and I saw dust on it. And I said from that point on, I lost what I loved. So that was something that I really love, athletics. So I knew these things correlate. I didn't have that conversation with anybody. My mom, she didn't even go to high school. She's still teaching herself how to read and write at that time. You know, my dad, he was always at work. He was pulling 15, 16-hour shifts. He was working from 6 in the morning to 3 in the morning, getting double time, you know. So, no brothers and sisters around. Right. I'm raising myself. Yeah. I'm getting up. I'm not raising myself, but raising myself school-wise. Right. And from that point, I think my dad got a little more involved. He was tough. I didn't like using him doing homework. He'd be all on me, you know. And then mom, she really couldn't help. So then I start to understand, well, these teachers that like you start talking to them about grades instead of talking to them about funny stuff, Chris. And then I started to be more self-assertive there. And I got my grades up good enough. And then I said, I want to transfer, though. Because I was still a little resentful. Like, y'all used me and let me just rock out and then didn't say nothing. Like, so still resentful, being young, still pointing little fingers, not taking total accountability for my actions and my choices. So I went to South. I finally, and D was going to, me and D went and talked, like, hey, which, are you coming to North or are you going to South? And I don't know if you know this, but at the time, if you lived on the south end of town and was Caucasian, you could not go to North. If you were black and lived on the south end of town, you could go. That kept things racially kind of balanced. Yeah, it kept it racially balanced. So you got guys like C.J. McDavid and all that lived on Sherman. They couldn't go to the South. They had to go, and that just kept everything close to about 60-40 at both schools. So they would look at your race and ethnicity to see if it's okay to transfer. But we looked at each other's. We knew we could both go to North. He can go to North because we both on the south end of town. So we looked at our highlight tapes, and then we decided, I was like, well, I don't care what we're doing. I'm coming to South. I want to come to South. So that started my career my junior year at Springfield South High School. And then I got to see the dynamics of teachers who recognize the kids that are struggling and can reach out to them. There was more of a sense of reaching out in that building because of the dynamics. You know what I'm saying? You at North, two parents getting up, you're smart, you got your, homework, you got help, everything's together.
It's an assumption that because you have this,
an assumption.
You got the support.
You here, you got the support, so your grades are your grades. I ain't worried about all that. Yeah. Well, on the other side of town, they've probably seen a little more, heard a little more what our kids are going through, and a little more sensitive to the fact of, I need to give this kid a boost. And I'm not saying every teacher at North High was like that, but I don't remember. Personally, I don't remember getting any type of boost from someone there. But I do remember getting all the help, all the push. Counselors coming to talk to me daily about, you need to work on this and that because you're pretty good in sports and you're going to need this and that. And I started to understand, it's the first time I knew about ACT. Like, oh, man, I wish I'd have started taking this, sophomore year. And I was able to, we would go to Dayton, and me and D would go to Dayton after practice and study for the ACT, and there was teachers like, hey, you want to get in French club? Chris, I love your personality. Now, see, I'm doing the same thing with these teachers, but now they're recognizing, saying, these are tools we can use. You can use this for this and use this for that. And I started to get involved in committees and school government and became the class president my senior year. I was the social studies club president. I was the Key Club president, and I was the French Club president. And I remember going you ever went to the Scared Straight field trip? where you go out to London and
I ain't never been, but I heard about it
Well-
because my thing is, man, I just don't voluntarily put myself in situations
Exactly.
that you're gonna get scared because
Exactly.
there's a part of me that like to fight and like to punch people.
and most of the time,
And we don't have to edit that, Chad. You can keep that on.
and most of the hey, you know you.
I know.
That's good. You got to know yourself. But most of the, and you're right, because most of those were truancy kids,
Yeah.
kids who have trouble with attendance and showing up or behavior
Yeah.
problems. They went, but the Key Club sponsored it. So as the president, I was like, I'll go. I had no idea what it was till I got put in the jumpsuit and went through the thing and everybody in people's face. And I remember at the end when they went and talked to us, I was sitting in the back, like closer to the teachers, away from it, because I saw what I went through. I was like, I need to separate. I need to let them know I'm not part. So one of them came back and what you? Oh, you think you special? Why you sitting back here? And I said, I'm the class president. I'm the president of the Key Club. Oh, so y'all boys need to get like y'all need to get like this. But so got involved with a lot of other stuff other than sports, and started to see that and saw where, I was a personal guy and liked to talk. So organized a lot of things. Our senior night at Kings Island, did different things like that, and was able to be state player of the year in high school at South with D. And he went to Ohio State, and I was once again, I came into a situation where everybody didn't kind of like how I looked running, throwing. I wasn't 6'7". I didn't look like all the quarterbacks, how they looked at that time. My skin tone was a little different. And it went to, I would go on some visits, and they would always I went to Cincinnati. And mind you, my dad never spoke about sports. Anytime I felt like, man, this is hard, and I can't quit, he would say, quit. And I'd be like, I ain't quitting. Well, handle it. That's as much as he would say. But I was at Cincinnati, and Coach Harbaugh, who is the coach of the Baltimore Ravens now, he was the special teams coach, and he recruited our area for the University of Cincinnati. And they recruited me real hard. And the head coach was Coach Murphy, and the offensive coordinator was Dana Bible, who was coming from the Cincinnati Bengals. He was offensive coordinator there. And Harbaugh would call me every Thursday my senior year and talk about the team we're playing. And I grew so much mentally and learning the game of how to break teams down, talking to him each week. I was ready to go to Cincinnati, right? Toledo was coming in. Ohio State was talking to me. And I felt Ohio State and Tennessee, but I think they were really talking to me because of D. And they was like, if that's his man, if he come. Right. So, and in my head, I'm like, cool, I'm going to be the quarterback there. So what we went to, I had Cincinnati. I was like, yeah, I'm going to visit them. But we went to Tennessee. And Tennessee pulled me into the room and said, hey, here's our depth chart. This is our number one quarterback we looking at. Excuse me. Here's our number two. And you're our third guy. But we're going to take two quarterbacks. And I don't think if one of these two come, the other one's not going to come. And I'm like, yeah, I know who they are. That's Todd Helton and Peyton Manning. Todd Helton is a quarter. He played football there, but he also he went and played in the major leagues. He played for the Colorado Rockies, I think. And, of course, Peyton Manning. So he was like, I think we got Peyton, so we'll see what the other two do. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to battle with Peyton Manning. I don't know who this dude is, but I'm coming at him. But everybody's 6'6", 6'5". Here I am, 6'1", 6'2", and not looking the part. Not the normal face of a college program, especially Division I. Just not, So we went to that visit, and then we went to Ohio State called me. Ohio State was cranking it up on D, heavy. Went to Michigan, saw the Fab Five, was sat in the locker room with them, with Jalen Rose, with the basketball game. D was really liking Michigan and Tennessee, and Ohio State was putting the pressure on. They upped their ante, and then they called me and said, Chris, want to offer you a scholarship. Want you to come to the Ohio State University, but not as a quarterback. Want you to play free safety. We have a quarterback. We're going to sign him, but we want you to come. And then that's when I knew they were being honest. And I was thankful for them being honest because everybody's not honest.
Right.
Everybody's not upfront and honest. And I was fortunate enough to have some honesty. And I told them, I said, thank you for being honest, but I want to play quarterback. I'm a quarterback. And so I didn't take that scholarship. But I knew D was ready to take that scholarship, you know. And I was like, you going to Ohio State? Go, man. He was like, did they call you? I was like, yeah, they did. It's like, but I'm a quarterback. I understand. You do your thing. And I was a little salty, you know. Ohio State is all we know.
That rejection, you know,
Rejection.
how did that?
Well, I had to channel back in.
Yeah, how did you channel that, man?
I channeled it the same way as with the kids talking about me the way I run. The other coaches, well, you're third. That's a rejection.
Yeah.
I'm not the top. I'm not your top priority. You're third. I was the ride along kid in those scholarship offers for D. D was the prize in that, you know, and rightfully so. He had to build. He had to, you know. To me, somebody had to look at me and say, I believe in you. You know, I believe in you. Come on, I'm gonna let you do this. And I had that. So it was easy to say, I'm cool. Go ahead, do your thing. I'm going to go down here to Cincinnati and commit. So I went to Cincinnati on my visit, and it was, you know, they had the head coach, Murphy, had just took a job at Harvard. And the new coach came from Notre Dame, Rick Minner. And he came in, but Dana Bible was still there. Harbaugh was still there. Had a great weekend. Mike Davis, who is a Springfield native, he was at Cincinnati. He was my host. Had a great time. And it was time to go in and meet the coaches that morning for breakfast that Sunday. Go home. I was going in to commit. Like, I want to be here. The next weekend, I decided I was supposed to go to Hawaii on a visit. They wanted me. That guy was from Wittenberg. So he knew enough people was like, I believe. So I had two people believing in me, Harbaugh and this offensive coordinator at Hawaii at the time. And Toledo was still around. I kept telling them, no, I don't want to go to Toledo. It's cold. Looks down. So I went to Cincinnati. Great visit. Harbaugh, Dana Bible, they're there. They're like, you going in to meet Coach Minner. When you come out, we'll have breakfast and be a Bearcat. It's like, yes, sir. So I went in there, went with my mom and dad, and Purdue was still looking at me a little bit. They had a guy that had shoulder surgery, and they didn't know if he was going to be done. They wanted me to be their guy. So the rejection was still having me chasing what I was being rejected from. Like, oh, that's an opportunity to be at that level and play here or whatever, instead of focusing on who wanted me. But at the time, going in here, Cincinnati. So Rick Minner comes in and didn't have the same energy as Harbaugh and Dana Bible had for me. He's coming from Notre Dame, so obviously he was recruiting some people. He had people in mind, and he came in and he said, so who all's after you? I said, well, I went on Tennessee, and he's like, well, they're not going to sign you. They're going to sign the other two quarterbacks in the nation. I was like, I've talked to Purdue a little bit. He was like, and Michigan State, he was like, have they said they want you? Because if they haven't said that, they don't want you. I mean, he's coming at me. And then, and I said, well, Purdue he said, they're not going to sign you. I already see their quarterbacks. They're not going to sign you. He was like, let me tell you. He was like, you're good, but you're no Warren Moon. You know, you're no Warren Moon. And I was just as strong as I am, you know, as I come off, I didn't know what to say. All I was doing is just sinking in the chair like, and I think my dad saw that. And he was like, oh, he's no Warren Moon yet. Not yet. But he will be with you or without you. And I think we done here. And ended it. So he was like, get up. First time he ever spoke in any of these visits, been around, he have his little pipe with his tobacco. You know, my dad, he would too. He'd be quiet. Real, very intelligent. Great with his words, can speak. He was a smart guy. And he was like, he just ended it. Oh, not yet, but he will be. He said, we done, let's go. And then I kind of got back and got with him. Like, okay, yeah, let's go. And we went out and he was like, Bearcat? And I was like, nah. I just want to eat. Let's eat and go home, right? So we talked about it, and it never happened, you know. So I'm ready to go to Hawaii. My mom's got tickets. They took care of the tickets and everything. We ready to go, and I got another call from the coach at Toledo, and he's talking to me, and I'm sitting here going like this. He's like, man, I really
already had it made up in your mind.
Yeah, and he's like, so can you come for a visit? I was like, yeah, I'll come. And I stopped by. I was like, dang, I said, I'll come. So I went and I was like, hey, we going to, before we go to Hawaii, we going to Toledo. And I ended up going there, and everything in my soul felt good. And my brother always told me that. He was like, listen, that little thing in your gut when you're around your friends and you ain't feeling right, pay attention to that. And pay attention to when you are feeling right. He was like, and take that. This is over the phone because he in North Carolina now. He said, take that with you when you go on these visits. Because your mama and your daddy ain't nobody going to be there. You used to being by your own, so you know if this is comfortable. And I went to Toledo, and everything was on green inside of me. It was good. And I said, this is where I want to be. And he's like, what, are you committing? And my mom was hot because we were supposed to go to Hawaii. She was hot. But I didn't care. I was like, this is it. You know, and she was mad, and they took the tickets back, and I was still trying to go.
You still trying to
But Toledo made that call, like, yeah, he committed.
Dang, man, you should have said, man, let's go to Hawaii first, and then...
Yeah. I was thinking that, and they knew I had Hawaii up. They knew Hawaii was next on the list. They slid in front. And they said, well, we want to sign you first, but we want to sign our quarterbacks today and the other quarterbacks here. So they put that pressure on me.
Yeah.
And I was feeling good. I wasn't even thinking that way. If I was thinking that way, I might have not have been paying attention to how I feel
100%.
about a life decision.
100%.
My total focus was on how I'm feeling and not anything else. And I made it, and it was the right decision, man. Like, I went where I was wanted, not to where I could have went to be tolerated.
Yeah, that.
When somebody, I want you just because I got something else and they want you, I'm going to tolerate you. Or I want you to come here and I'm going to make sure you succeed because you're somebody I want, and I want to show you off to say when you come here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I could have chased the waterfall and not been wanted but been tolerated. But I chose because of my brother, my family, standing strong, standing on your own too, being told what you're not, being able to handle that and process it and still make a good decision put me in that place right there where I chose the University of Toledo. And I took off from there. They made sure I was in class. I mean, they was just all over me, man.
Yeah.
To the point where you can't do nothing but succeed. And that's the difference, because I know some people who went, they chased a waterfall. They chased a name. I could have easily chose Ohio State just to say I go to Ohio State.
Right.
I play football for Ohio State. And would have been lost in the sauce because they didn't have no intentions of, I ain't no safety. I'm not a safety.
Right.
You know. So making the right choice was crucial, and being in that right state of mind is all because of my childhood.
That's what's up, man. So bring us into, you're at college, you signed with the Toledo
Whew.
environment, college life, the
Yes.
positive, the challenges, man, the struggles that you have college life, and then bring us to after college,
Yes.
life and where you are now, children,
Yes.
and all that type of stuff.
Well, college life was hard. Now, mind you, I'm coming from being the state offensive player of the year, Division One. I'm used to playing. I'm used to producing. I'm used to making it happen. And here I get up into college, and I didn't complete a pass the first week. It was just so fast. I didn't throw no interception. I just kept throwing it out of bounds. Like, so the growth that I needed to do was enormous. I was not ready. So I ended up sitting. I got redshirted. I didn't play until my redshirt junior year. So I sat 4 years. I sat 4 years and traveled and learned and took it in, and those were some hard times. I remember calling home in tears, wanting to transfer, wanting to get out and go somewhere else. But then there was that gut feeling inside of me, which is your spirit, and it says, you ain't ready to play. Get ready. Right? So here's another situation of me dealing with rejection and disappointment. But somewhere along the line, you got to check yourself and have it inside of you. And deep down inside, that gut feeling that my brother wanted me to do is pay attention to that. So I never transferred, and I just said, keep getting better. And so I moved up the depth chart. My first day, I was 5th on the depth chart, and they do it by stretch lines. So I'm coming in, I was the big recruit. Shoot, I put my stuff on. All I see is butts in front of me, stretching. And I'm at the end. I'm on the sideline, So when you go up on the depth chart, you see it on the board. Oh, then you move ahead. That person back there, they know. They know the coaches want that person in front of me. So that was my next tunnel vision venture. Like, boop, 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 I'm moving. So I moved up 2 spots my freshman year. After that first week, I figured out how do I get used to the speed with that, and then you don't get all the reps. You can't implement. You can't. I don't know the word I'm looking for. You can't create that environment of the pressure and the rush and throwing completions unless being in that. How else do you do it? I didn't know at the time, but then I'm looking over and I'm looking at the defensive line go against the offensive line, and there's a crowd, and they going 3-on-3, and they rushing the quarterback, and there's a dummy that represents the quarterback. So I took another freshman walk-on receiver that we ain't getting no reps. I said, hey, come over here and catch this ball for me. And I went over there, and I said, hey, coach, the line coach, can I be the quarterback? Can I take snaps? They was like, you want to get into that? I was like, yeah, I ain't doing nothing else. So I had my receiver be over there, and then they coming. And I'm snapping the ball, and I'm throwing the ball, but they wasn't letting them hit me. So I was getting comfortable with all the stuff coming up on your chest and throwing it. Man, that next week I went to work. And then I start moving up, and going into my freshman year, I also played baseball. And that was fun. That was my first trip out to Vegas. Yeah, we snuck out and tried to get on to the Hard Rock Cafe, room, and we couldn't get out there, and we ended up getting caught, but we didn't do anything, no harm, no foul. So my coaches let me play baseball my redshirt freshman year, but going into my junior year, I was ready to. My redshirt sophomore year, they let me play. Going into my junior year, they didn't let me play because they was like, you got a chance to start. And then that's when the year before that, my redshirt sophomore year, you always room with the starter. So I had moved up to the second string, so we would room together on home games, away games, and I got to see how he prepared. Now, mind you, my circle back in my day, we lift each other's up, we learn, we ain't hating. Even if you do have some resentment, you trying to learn. I want to get like it, though. And I was a sponge. I picked his brain, and then when he graduated, that redshirt junior year was my year to start. I still had that good relationship with people. I was okay with the limelight and being in front of the cameras. And they asked me, we were about to play Purdue, who didn't want me, right? We had Purdue on the schedule, and in my redshirt sophomore year, we had Cincinnati on the schedule. And the quarterback that got picked in place of me, that the quarterback that he wanted to have, I think he threw like 5 interceptions that day. And we beat the crap out of Cincinnati, beat the brakes off of them. And we went out on the field, and all the coaches was coming. And coaches that recruited you. So you're like, what's up, And I I ran up, and I saw Rick. I said, hey, Coach, I am so glad I didn't get to play for you. I appreciate it. And so I got that get back. So the next get back was Purdue not wanting to pick me up. And we had Purdue on the list. And Toledo hadn't had a black quarterback since 1969 to 1971. And the black quarterback that they did have went 31-0. Never lost a game at the University of Toledo, Chuck Ely. And I think he's inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame now, just getting inducted. Should have been in there. Went to the Canadian League after that because the NFL wasn't getting you because he was my height. He looked like me. So and his son went to school at Toledo. So my first day on the yard, I got to meet Chuck Ely. First day I land on the yard, his son is coming out of the athletic room, the equipment room, because we get sized up for stuff. And his dad was there. And they was like, this is Chuck Ely. And I was like, oh my, man, I hope I get to play like you and da-da-da. And he said, I hope you don't have to go through the things that I had to go through. I'm glad I did it, right? So Toledo was already like, we cool. We got him. But they hadn't had one since 1969. So Toledo Blade, I had an interview with him before we were about to play Purdue. It's our first home game, new quarterback, some new systems, new coordinator. The guy that recruited me left. So it was the line coach who, and he said, how do you plan on holding up to the bar of the last African-American quarterback? I said, well, I don't really feel I have to hold up. I'm just happy to be here. I wasn't even supposed to be playing football. I wasn't even supposed to walk. And when I said that turned the whole tide to, instead of me talking about filling the shoes of the last black quarterback, like, man, I'm glad to have shoes. And then we went into that story, and that story took off into Toledo Blade and went to the LA Times. And but after that article was the day of the first game, and we beat Purdue. I think we ended up running off 8 straight and was like 18th in the nation that year, ranked. And it was everywhere, man. I ended up getting on Oprah about it. I was on It's a Miracle. Extra followed me around. So it was a circus. It was a media circus, but it was another situation of how I stand tall. You can turn things into a positive no matter what it is. And that led me to my next rejection of not being able to get in the NFL.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man. So did you play? Did you try out for NFL? Did you, or was that something?
I had some workouts. I had some workouts at Toledo. I went to the Pittsburgh Steelers facility and had a workout for them. Going into after my senior year, my last game, it probably was fractured, my ankle. I sprained it bad. So as far as trying out and working out for people, I couldn't do it until I was healthy enough. So now this kid who is not 6'5", has an ankle problem. He sprained his ankle, and he already has feet problems. He's a liability. Let's look at him. Yeah, great numbers, did great things at Toledo, but as far as us and money and looking at that, I don't know. And I didn't check any of the other boxes as being a face of a program, you know. Um, Meanwhile, at that time, there was another 6'2" quarterback named Drew Brees. He's the next phenomenon coming out. So, and I think McCoy from UCLA was the next one. But Ryan Leaf, and he was the next big thing. Ryan Leaf, Peyton Manning, those were the guys coming out. You know, the same guys, the Josh Booties. I was third coming out of high school. I was honorable mention All-American. So I did some good work, but going into the league, trying to get into the league, man, and Dallas came, and I ended up not getting anything. And I remember I was playing baseball my senior year, and the draft was going on, and we were in the MAC baseball tournament. We was at Ball State, and I had a cell phone and an agent. Like, I'm waiting for the phone to ring, and I'm in the dugout, and we come out, and I come in, I'm looking, and then one time it rang. I'm like, hello? He was like, hey, man, I'm just checking in. Ain't nothing really happening. We're going to do this free. None of that happened. So now baseball season's over. I'm a senior. Football's not working. I'm like, what am I going to do? So D, he ended up, he had a draft party because he had got picked up later in the round with Green Bay. He said, hey, man, I'm having a pool party. Would you come down? And I'm like, all right. I ain't had nothing to do. So I went down there, and boy, was it a pool party. It was a nice party. And he told me, he was like, hey, you see that girl right there, man? He's like, man, I've been trying to get her, man, and be, I like her, man. I'm trying to have a relationship with her. I was like, for real? And I was in high school, I was the more the relationship guy, D Mill was he was OPP, he was making moves. I wanted to have a girlfriend all the time. He was like, so it was weird when he was talking to me like, man, bro, I need your help. You got that gift of gab. You can gab, man. I need your help. I said, cool. Went over there. I'm feeling good anyway. It was a nice party. And we talked for about 45 minutes, man. I quoted some Bible quotes. I can't even remember what I quote, but it was correct. I went in for my man, and they married until this day.
Wow.
That after he was like, man, you glassed me up, man. And I don't even know how much she remembered that, because I try to talk about it, and D be like, yeah, but I don't know. But I know what I did there at that party for him and hooked him up. And from that point, man, I never went back to Toledo. I stayed in Columbus. And I think it was good. Everything I've been through was good, man. And I stayed there, and I had a friend of mine who I brought out of Springfield because he was just in the mix too much.
Right.
And I had him come stay with me, my man Craig. And I was like, he was up there with me, and there was a girl that was cool with us in our apartment complex and came down and was like, he said something to her. She's like, who are you? They start arguing. I was like, man, why don't y'all just be friends and go ahead and forget about it and be boyfriend and girlfriend? Y'all, obviously, I know both of y'all. Y'all look like y'all like each other. So they ended up getting together in the future, too. So they got kids and everything. So
Matchmaker.
I'm the matchmaker. I'm Cupid as well. But I'm throwing the dart. I ain't shooting. I'm throwing like quarterback. So with all that going on, I called Craig, like, Craig, you got the apartment, keep everything. I ain't coming back. He's like, what? So I just didn't. And I think a lot of those power moves I was making is because of all the stuff I wasn't getting.
Right.
Wasn't happening. And I ended up getting a call from a man that wanted me to play some arena football. And it was in Greenville, South Carolina. I was in the process of getting my passport because I was going to go over to Cologne, Germany. And I was ready to do that. And then I was like, this arena thing's right here. What's this about? So I ended up doing that instead. And that was in Greenville, South Carolina in 2000. I graduated in 98, 99, I walked. So in 2000, I'm down there. I had just made the choice to go play that. And then I get a call from the coordinator that recruited me at Northern Iowa. He was the head coach there. And he wanted me to come be a graduate assistant for him and then jump into coaching, right? And I'm like, I'm still chasing this football. I want to play football, so I didn't go. And I stayed there and was fortunate enough to have a good year, and arena really start having me deal with some rejection, bro. I went through a lot in arena football because I didn't look the part. And in arena, they really want the face to be how the face is back then. They did. It is what it is. And so the coach wanted me to be the quarterback. The owner had an idea of another quarterback. His name was Brent, and he was from Cincinnati. Bearcat. Again. So we ended up arena football. The coach really didn't know arena football, and we were playing against people that had been in this game, that played arena. Arena football had been alive for 18 years at the time. So we're playing coaches that been in it for 10. Me and our coach, we looking at plays like, hey, let's try that. They did that. We trying to create it. This is in 2000, so we took some lumps, and right off the bat, I didn't play well, and that's when the owner was like, we can make a move. So he made the move, and I'm used to rejection now. Let's get better. I'm never nobody's choice. I'm always the second choice or the third choice. So I'm grinding, and I ended up getting back in. We're splitting time, and I found I didn't see anything, so I ran. I ended up being the second leading rusher as quarterback in the arena league, and there's no such thing as that, right? So I ended up making a little name for myself and made some highlight tapes, and then so that was Arena 2, which is a farm team for the Arena 1s. Now Arena 1s, you was getting paid, you got $200 in Arena 2, $250 if you win. That was it. But they would pay for your housing and stuff, but it's a chance to get some film and do something else, So I was like, let's do it. So I did that, and met some good friends, made some good plays, and Orlando Predators called me. My agent was working for me, and I went down to Orlando, and Jay Gruden, who is John Gruden's brother, he was a big-time arena quarterback out of Louisville, Kentucky, played for the Tampa Bay Storm, coach at the Orlando Predators. Now, Orlando Predators, they averaged about 30,000 people a game. You make about $1,500 a week, and they pay for your housing. And you can get signing bonuses once you get up in the ranks. But I was behind. Coach was the coach, and he had ideas of who he wanted. 6'6" guys, And I was never really his choice, but I was good enough to be on the team. So they signed me, and I played a few years with them. And I really didn't start growing and getting my shot until I went back to Arena 2. Because the seasons were staggered. So I would go back to keep playing and sharpening my skills and come back to Orlando. And he had stopped playing. He was done. And his assistant coach, Fran Papasadero, I remember I was in Norfolk, Virginia playing. And those people called me. And so I knew the difference when people wanted me, just like in college. And I would flourish with them. So Papasadero was he was in line to take the Columbus I forget their names, but the Columbus, Ohio had an arena team, and Columbus Destroyers, and he was in line to get that job, and he called me in Norfolk. He was like, Chris, now mind you, me and him didn't see eye to eye all the time. He was one of those coaches that mistaked my confidence for cockiness and would try to say things and knock me down. By this time, I'm saying stuff back, so, but he respected my work ethic because after a year or two, he see like, oh, he grinded, he works. So we had a good relationship then, started to talk. And that's when I learned, like, you got to have relationships with people, Chris. Sometimes you got to bite your tongue and, and fight through that and just let them eventually see you. And I'm still learning that part, biting my tongue. Still learning that. But he had called me while I was in Norfolk, like, hey, I see you lighting it up there. I was leading the AF2 and all of that, quarterback efficiency and everything. And he said, I want you to, you want to go back home to Columbus and play? I've been in Florida and everything. And I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, yes. I'm got a head coach who want me to do this. And at this time, I could play. I could play arena football now. I could call my own plays almost. And Jay Gruden taught me a lot of that. He taught me how to, him and Kenny McIntyre, two greats, two Hall of Famers in the arena. I was able to be under their tutelage. And Kenny was a DB, so he picked me off all the time and be like, nah, you ain't looking me off. I could tell what you're doing. You didn't see when I bailed, just talking that language with me. So I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I think it was 2 weeks later, I get a call. Fran Papasadero dies in a car accident. Coming from a meeting with the owners from Columbus in Orlando. Ejected out of his roof. Passed, done. So now I'm back to square one. So I go back home. I've had my daughter at this time. She had just gotten was born. And I was talking to my wife, like, I don't know what to do. So I ended up going to Huntsville, Alabama, and playing arena football. And I was projected to be the starter the whole time. And then here comes this other kid in. Don't look like me, but the owner brought him in. So the owner put him there, and they traded me off to Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, somewhere. And I'm like, I don't want to do that, right? So I ended up coming back home, and Cape Fear Wildcats in Fayetteville called me. Here's another situation. So now I'm playing with them. It's first 6 games, leading the league in quarterback efficiency. Now Fayetteville it's a urban place. It's a military city, but there's a lot of black folks there. And had the radio station. I'm on the radio. I'm on that, and I'm with the coach, and we're playing good football. We're right there. We're in first. Lost the game to Wilkes-Barre. We were about a game out or something like that. And he called me in and said, hey, I got to trade you. He tried to trade me to Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, right? We just left up there. But I knew the Wilkes-Barre coach. His name was Les Moss, who coached with Jay in Orlando. Right. So he's trading me. I'm like, why are you trading me? Now, mind you, there's some coaches behind him just like looking down like, this ain't cool. Tony Missick was one of the coaches. He played for the Eagles back in the day, NFL guy. And he was like, hey, man, there's a quarterback. He's third string in Wilkes-Barre. He's a good friend of mine. He's played for me. I stay at his parents' cabins, in the off season. So I'm gonna trade. We're gonna trade you for him. I was like, I'm getting traded for a timeshare, basically, right now. So I don't know where to go now. Now I'm in Fayetteville. I got a kid. Yeah. I got a wife. I'm in Fayetteville. I'm staying in a trailer. It's like 8 Mile. They call it 8 Mile. I'm staying in a trailer. It did have mirrors on the ceiling, so I had a nice trailer. And I'm sitting here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, like, what the heck is going on? And I said, I need something to get my mind right. I don't want to go home. I'm chasing something, and I don't know what I'm chasing. So the commissioner calls me, the president said, "Hey, I heard what happened. Hey, man, you let me know where you want to go. You don't have to go to the Wilkes-Barre. I don't think that's cool. There's nothing I can do, but that ain't cool. I could reject it, but you don't want to go back to where you're not wanted." I was like, "No, sir." So my friend who was playing with me, he said, "Hey, man, there's a place in North Atlanta you can stay at till you want to figure out what you want to get." It was a Christian retreat, and there was no TVs in the hotel. All they had was the clock radio. It's in the middle of woods, and they had a diner where I could eat. And my his homeboy who played with us, what got cut, his dad ran that place. So I was like, cool. So I drove to North Atlanta, got a ride to North Atlanta, and stayed in there and just tried to figure out what I wanted to do. And it came to the conclusion I wanted to get back close to my family. And where could I go? I ain't going to Orlando because I wasn't getting, I didn't feel like that wasn't my time. So I was like the Florida Firecats in Fort Myers, and we had just played against them. This is the thing. Let me go back. So before I got traded from Fayetteville, we going down to play Fort Myers. The game before, I sprained both of my ankles. Right? I get my lineman throws the guy in it. Wham! First play. Then that guy throws his guy, trying to block him, throw him down. Wham! So I'm playing that whole game with 2 ankle sprains. One's real bad. So I'm healing myself. I'm going through this. By Wednesday, and I'm hearing rumors that they talking to other quarterbacks by this time at Fayetteville. And I'm leading the league in quarterback efficiency. Like, I'm 6 games, I got 26 touchdowns. I'm doing good, but I hear what's going. I already know. So I get myself together like, hey, I can go on a trip and be an emergency quarterback. So I practice on a Wednesday, ankles black and blue, and I get a little slush bucket cooler thing that can ice it. So I make it the trip to Fort Myers. My family's in Orlando. They drive down and see me, and I'm looking at Fort Myers like, this is nice. Nice place. I don't plan on playing. I know some of my friends from Norfolk that's playing for Florida for the Firecats. And we're staying in the hotel where they're staying. So I'm on the first floor by the pool. They're all in the pool. And my ankle's propped up. They see my ankle and everything. And he was like, "Oh, you ain't playing on that." I was like, "Nah, I'm just here. I'm glad I got to come. I got to see my baby and my wife and stuff." And it's all in the paper that I won't be playing because the coach was like, "This is the problem." He wanted me to play. Ben Bennett wanted me to play for him. But I went, chased Huntsville, ended up in Fayetteville. So the game starts, and on the way in, we drove from Fayetteville to Florida. We picked up a quarterback from the airport, flew in from Arizona, started him, right? I'm suited up, ready to play. He gets hit. I saw paint chips fly up in the air. He gets hit so hard, he had a dent in his temple. So he was done. I had to come in and play the whole game. Mind you, I got 2 cast ankles tape on my ankles, and we ended up beating Florida. After the game, the coach is crying, my coach, crying and hugging me like, "I love you, man. I love this, man, blah, blah, blah. We're going to build this thing around you." And I get traded the next week. That's when I get traded for the cabin and all of that stuff. The very next week. So that's what had me all in like, I can't trust nothing. So in that thing, Florida had a great quarterback, Ken Mastrolli. And I wasn't going to be able to, that's his guy. The owner liked him, and I done got whiff of how these owners do. So I still said that's the closest way. So I said, I'll go be a backup. And I called him, ended up in Fort Myers, and my career really took off there. I had a senior, not a senior, he was a big contributor to, he had season tickets, but he also was an owner of a Christian outreach school called Florida Christian Institute. And he saw something in me and asked me to do a camp, and then that's how I started getting into the education part. because she didn't have to have certification. So as I'm in Fort Myers, I got a real job. Now I'm making $50,000. Everybody else making 200, 250. But I'm like, I can play arena too if I'm making 50, you know. So I'm down there. They're paying for my living. So my family back at home's good. Everything's good. And we ended up winning. We ended up beating Fayetteville to get to the Arena Cup that year. And we won the Arena Cup, and Ken Mastroli, he decided to retire, and then that moved me into the starting job. And from that point, I played for 12 years in Florida, 12, 15 years in Fort Myers.
What was, I mean, you know, I love it, man, because, you know, sometimes we see the success part of it, but you don't know the grind and all the rejection and the backstories and all that type of stuff, man. And as we move, man, as we wrap up, you know, I want to, you mentioned something, man, that's very important. Going through all of that, you're a husband and a father.
Husband and father.
You know, so, you know, how did that responsibility of being a husband and a father play into that? And then, you know, we wrap up with, you know, where you are now and the future you see here in Springfield, because you got back to Springfield. Yes. So there had to be something to pull you back to Springfield. But mostly, you know, man, we get quickly on that, you know, thinking about all of that, and I'm a husband and a father. So that plays mentally. Yeah. And then how did you get back to Springfield?
Well, when I first got to Fort Myers, they knew I was close. My wife and all of her family, moms, everybody was in Orlando, which is about a 3-hour drive. They didn't have a bed for me in Fort Myers, so I came in. There was a quarterback. I'm a quarterback. I just came in. The other quarterback starts. You the backup. They're keeping 2 quarterbacks. Somebody gotta go. This is the apartment. So he in that room. I'm sleeping in the washroom with an air mattress. Not the living room. I'm trying to get my own little. So they end up cutting him. So I move into that room and I'm there. But before I move in there, as soon as I get there, my wife wanted to come see me. So she came down to pick me up. This is before me working with Florida Christian or nothing. But I knew, because I took time off to touch into my gut and my spirit and what choices I wanted to make. I said, I'm going here, and I'm going to be a backup. So sleeping on the mattress and all that was temporary from what I came to vision and what my spirit told me where to be. So that was nothing. That's like, Chris is going to be a great baby. I don't care that he ain't kicking. You know what I'm saying? So I was the same way. Like, I already saw this is where I need to be. I'm good. So she came down like, get your stuff. You're done. Go to work. Mind you, I'm making $200, $250. I don't have no main job yet. I'm just chasing this dream, chasing a purpose or something. I was like, I ain't going nowhere. Her mom was all on it like that. I'm like, I'm staying. I'll come visit my baby, So I was still not like, I got to take care of my family. I wasn't there yet. I was still on me. I was still about me. Kind of selfish. But sometimes you need to be selfish to break through something to get to where you got to be. And as I started to stay there, things started to happen. Then I called back. I called my wife. I remember calling. I said, hey, I need to get my transcripts. She was like, transcripts? Like, I don't even think she knew I went to school yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's been football. When I met her, it was all that. So she was like, yeah, she called me back and said, oh, you can't get them because you owe something. So I called the school, talked to a couple people. They was like, oh, yeah, let me erase this for you, Chris. You good? It was a towel or something somebody put in. So I called her back. I said, print it out now. She said, you got a hold of somebody that fast for them to remove it where admissions can. I said, try it. She was like, called me back and said, oh, you did. Was you important at school? Like, no connection to stuff. You know, she's a worker. Beautiful girl. Worker, though. So I said, yeah. So I ended up getting a teaching job. in the place that they wanted me to leave. So I'm like, let me do this thing. And then I start growing in football, and that grew. And now the arena teams are starting to want me to come back and do some different things like that. And I had a chance to go back to New Orleans. I was gonna go to New Orleans or Chicago, but with the pay, I was like, I'm making too much here, so I stayed there. And then eventually, I had my wife move to Fort Myers. So now I got somebody who I've been on my own for the last 5 years. You know what I'm saying? And we had been married probably about, I don't know how many years we've been married at that time, but we were married. And so she moved up to Fort Myers. That's when how I moved by myself and being married, that don't work. It didn't work. There was a lot of sacrificing and a lot of building that we had to do. And at that time, she ended up leaving and went back home. And I was on my own. And prior to that, we was trying to make it work. We was up and down. And then at one point in time, it was over. I remember putting stuff in a plastic bag saying bye to my daughter. And she was little. She didn't know what was going on. But we had tried. So she went back home, and I was working at Florida Christian, and I got a call, and she said, hey, I'm pregnant. And I was like, okay. And I remember, I know when it was, I remember, you know, you just know when you know.
Almost kind of like your mom, the situation was right.
Yeah, it was right. The situation was right. The Stetson cologne was out. So my response was, well, come on back. I'll be waiting on you when you get, and from that point, that's where my son CJ came in.
Yeah.
So that was a experience that we tried to build off of. And when she came back, I was still chasing something, man. And I wasn't all the way together. I was doing things that really wasn't healthy for me and didn't care. I was trying to deal with stuff. My dad was starting to get sick. Dad came up and he had dementia. And he would run off. I had to find him before a game one day. He had went off and we had to go find him. And it was just a lot, you know. And my mom was talking to me about it, and she didn't want to put him in a home. And I was going through my things. You know, Florida was starting to, I don't know if it was conducive for where I was at, and the things that I was choosing to do at the time just wasn't right. I didn't see that yet. I didn't see any of that yet. And then I decided, hey, I'm going home. And I think deep down inside, I wanted to go home to where that circle was that wouldn't mind telling me, hey, this is wrong, but this is how we can get it together. You know what I mean? And I didn't say that in my head, but I think now that I see that, maybe I was searching for that circle again to get back to where I needed to get back to do the things I needed to do. And when I came home, and I left everything again, just like I did Craig, I'm gone. I left my wife with it this time, like I'm out. But I knew this was a real selfish moment I needed to do. I got some work to do on me, and I need to be around people that don't mind that I need work and help me. So I came home, and when I got back, I think that was in 2009, I came back. So that was 9 years of playing arena football, that's it, and Florida Christian Institute. And another straw that broke the camel's back was, I don't know if y'all remember the free safety Sean Taylor, who was murdered in his house by some kids. Well, those two kids were part of my Florida Christian Institute team that I used to take with me and mentor with me, and they was getting mentored by Sean as well. But their uncles would have them boys go into dope houses around Fort Myers and stuff and survey the place, and then they would go in there and do their thing. And come to find, you know, when that thing hit CNN and all that, I'm in Fort Myers. I'm the dean of Florida Christian Institute. And it's all over CNN. These kids, they went to Florida Christian, but my president, he was like, I'll handle this. So with all this going on, man, and I'm broke down because I'm like, I couldn't get to these kids. And Florida Christian Institute, I had kids with ankle braces and trying to help them, trying to get them through. I created the football and all of that. And so I was like, it's time for me to go. So that's how I got home. And first day I went up, it was a Friday when I got home, and I went up to the high school, and they put me on the field. They was like, you coming on the field with us. I had no coaching credentials or nothing. Didn't know about coaching credentials. I was at a private school. Long as you good with the kids, you was good. So I came home with all my flaws all on me. All on me. But I think I was around a lot of people who would rather just know my flaws but not talk to me about it. When I got back here, man, it really started to open my eyes, you know. You know, people start to talk about you and talk about the things you're doing on the side and this, that, and the third. And it was a real bad homecoming for me, but it was because of me. It was because of the things I chose to indulge in. And I had to rectify myself and self-check myself and get the help that I needed, and surround myself with people that understand that everybody's not perfect. And I think it comes back to with my father, how he held stuff in. He never really. My mom talked about stuff, but the man who I am, that's a representation of me. He didn't talk, so I became a little introvert with my issues and stuff. So a lot of people would see me and then, hey man, you know, blah, man, and I was rough around the edges. But it got me to the point where I am right now, sitting here. I wouldn't change nothing. I wouldn't change nothing because my calling is the kids in our community. My calling is being here and seeing the potential and seeing the minuses and the pluses and able to put them together and make them visual for the individual to grow. And it's because of everything I've been through. And I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. And a lot of people think that it's been, you know, gumdrops and rainbows and unicorns flying around, you know, in my life. And it is not, but it's made me able to endure. You know, I still go through disappointments. You know, there's dreams and there's positions that I've wanted to apply for and wanted to get that I didn't get and I didn't understand. But it's a learning lesson, and you're learning how to grow, man. And I am thankful for growing up in Springfield. I'm thankful for all the journeys I had through my sports, and being 6 years into corporate and working with people. I don't mind learning, and I understand being around people that want you and working for them and doing your best. And I want to spread that forward. So I got a lot of knowledge to give some of these young kids who are about to go through it. They haven't even had their ice cream seasons yet, you know, and I'm so thankful that I was able to survive because the choices I made, you die or you get better, you know, you die or you get better. And I'm able to have those harsh truths with our kids, and they're the things that these kids are doing. They're starting they're starting younger and younger. You know, we got fourth graders, you know, with guns. You know, they you know, you got fourth graders using guns. We had somebody that lost their life at Kenwood in our My Brother's Keeper program, and I was fortunate enough to be part of that and help that grow and be in the schools. The district is allowing me to spend a lot of my time towards My Brother's Keeper, and along with my other job at the Dome. And I'm just in a great position to help. And I'm okay with helping, and I want to help the adults. I want to help the young guys that's old, and they're trying to call us 47-year-olds old heads, but I guess them 30-somethings, the ones that think they grown and sexy. I want to help those young men too. I'm here to help, and I think that's one thing that we all need to do. We all need to put an example out on wax that we are not in competition.
Right.
We are on the same page trying to give back to the community through all of our life experiences.
Right.
Each of us have our own experiences that we can add on to the kid, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah. Man, it's been an amazing journey, man. It's an amazing story, man. We definitely appreciate you, just your vulnerability, just sharing, you know, the ups, the downs, struggles, everything, man. You know, you said something, man, and we could close on this that I think is very important. We talk a lot about mental health. You know, that's a buzzword now. Mental health and therapy and stuff. And I think specifically for men, I'm going to talk specifically for men and young men and boys and stuff like that. When do we break that stigma of men can't be vulnerable and open up? Because, you know, you said something about, you know, your dad being like that, man. I think a lot of older guys were like that, you know, that we just don't talk about it. You feel what I'm saying? And I think, man, you know, at some point we have to break that mindset, man, that, you know, it's okay. Just because you're open up and you're vulnerable doesn't make you less of a man.
Exactly.
You feel what I'm saying? Exactly. You know, God has given us all feelings for a reason. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And you got to channel that for a reason. You know what I'm saying? If he didn't want you to have it, he wouldn't have given them to you.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So at some point, man, I just wish, man, that, you know, in our community, we're able to break that mindset that, you know, I got to keep everything held in, man. You know what I'm saying? But that's something, man, that could come at, you know, at another conversation or something like that, man. But I just wanted to put that out there, man, so we could start thinking about that, you know what I'm saying?
And it's stuff like this, man, on the camera, letting them see it. Like we're vulnerable. Yeah. And I didn't get my strength. I'm strong now because I chose to talk about my weaknesses. You know? And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. So I appreciate you, man. We appreciate your time, man. And great story.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Yep.